that's one thing I'm really seeing a lot of people that living off that overtime and expecting it as regular pay, and now with the cutbacks, that overtime's getting cut. Well, they still have plans for that overtime money, and it's not coming in anymore. So that's one of the biggest things that I'm seeing right now, and then just generally losing jobs. Seeing a lot of that as well.
You know, that's one thing that drives me crazy when people do this, and I see it all the time. I've got friends that do it, and I have relatives that do it. And it's exactly what you just said. Well, I'm going to be getting, this extra bonus, and I'm going to be getting this, this, and this. Going to be getting.
Right.
Okay. And then they go and they spend that money that they're going to be getting.
And a
then,
little more.
Lo and behold, that going to be getting didn't happen
Mm-hmm.
for one reason or another. And I'm like, why are you spending money that you don't have? You don't have that money yet. Why are you spending it?
Right. When you get a raise, you don't need. That doesn't mean that you need to go out and spend more. Put it aside, save it, and pretend like you didn't receive the raise, and that live below your means, or at max at your means. But what tends to happen is when we get raises, we're like, oh well, we're making a little more, so now we need a bigger, more expensive car, and we need it right now. We don't want to save up and purchase those items. So I would encourage savings, living below your means, and budgeting, and know what you're bringing in each month and what's going out, and pay those necessities first, and then worry about whether you have new furniture, or the latest car, or the newest phone, or whatever. Typically, my clients, they do have budgeting issues, and I think that's a learned behavior that maybe should be taught more at the early years of
High school.
Right, even before then, before you get out in the world. But typically my clients are coming to see me for one of three reasons. They're recently divorced, and they've gone from 2 salaries down to 1, and still have 2 salaries worth of bills. They've had a major medical problem not covered by insurance, or not fully covered by insurance, and or they lost their job,
Mm-hmm.
or injured on the work for during work, or injured somehow and had to be out of work for several months, or whatever the case may be, or a combination of the three. And I would say 95% of the people could be plugged into one of those 3 categories. So they may not have saved and created a nest egg, or maybe they have, and it's just in today's economy it can take 6-8 months, a year to find a job, especially around here, and that nest egg's gone. But that's why they're in talking to me, and some of the stories are gut wrenching, and they're not buying big screen TVs, they're not buying latest computer gadget or whatever. The debt's just necessities. It's medicine, it's food, it's mortgage payments on credit cards, and that sort of thing, just to try to keep their head afloat and keep things keep the necessities on the table. So I think that is a big misconception about bankruptcy. But just in general, whether people are filing bankruptcy or not, budget. Know what's coming in, know where it's going, save for items. Don't buy them on credit. It's tempting, no payments for a year on that big screen TV, but then when that year's up, you've got a year's worth of interest piled onto it if you haven't paid it off. And then you've got a budget that whatever the amount the payment is, and the interest rates are pretty high now, so on credit cards and consumer debt like that. So if you pay it off, or if you take a while to pay it off, you may be paying double on that TV or whatever that great deal was.
Yeah, not cool. Don't put yourself in that situation.
But save the money, let that grow, let the interest and dividends on that savings buy that TV, cash up front, and then you've got a TV for the price advertised, not double with interest rates and
Maybe
or
you should
interest
think
and
about
everything.
teaching a class.
I have. It's one more thing I have to work into my schedule.
Yeah, I mean, really, seriously. I mean, I wonder if they have a situation like even in high school, like high school freshmen, where you could go in and I mean, I would definitely let my child miss, a PE class or or heck, even a math class.
Yeah,
for
nobody
this.
uses that math stuff anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
English?
this is math. I mean,
Well, I do teach a
if
class.
you have $400 in your bank account and you spend $401, then you're $1 in
No,
the hole, which makes you, as you and I know, just from probably experience from when we were in college, and then learning better. Not only do you have to pay the bounce check fee, then you also get the overdraft charge from your bank.
right.
So that one extra dollar you spent ends up costing you about how much now? What's the average cost?
I think the bounce check fee is probably about $35 on average, and same thing for the late fee.
So that's 70. That one extra dollar that you spent too much is costing you $70.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, kids need to be taught these things.
they do have programs, junior achievement and some other ones that try to get them young and get them used to budgets and those sorts of things, and explain how the financial world works. I teach a class. I have about 10 individual classes a day, and
Yeah, those are called appointments.
right, every 30 minutes, and we
Is the
we
first
go
one
over
free?
this. It is a free consultation. So
Well, looky there. A
and
30-minute free class with Eric.
and on the website there's a free budget calculator. It'll create a budget for you. There's a sheet you can print out and tote it around. And I create two budgets, one for my business and one for myself. And it's not something that I create and forget about. I keep it around. I revise it. Things change. Priorities change with the business as far as whatever's going on, and so it's something that everybody should do and needs to do. As you know what's coming in and stuff like that. Maybe you don't sit down with pen and paper, but it's still something I do. I think it means it sinks in better when you're sitting there writing it down, trying to think, okay, I spend this much on my phone bill and this and that and the other thing. When you see the numbers on paper, it kind of sinks in. One thing when somebody's retained me and they've filled out all their paperwork and we've drafted the bankruptcy and we're ready to file, they come in and we go over what we drafted up and they sign where they need to sign so we can file it. And one thing that I do is I take all their creditors and spread them across my desk. And I watch their expressions, and that's when it sinks in. Wow, we had all these creditors. I didn't know we had that many. Now that's a little misleading because you go to the emergency room, you have one bill, but you get billed by 15 different doctors, everybody that even looked at you, and sometimes it's misleading because some of the creditors have multiple addresses that we need to send notices to that they filed. But still, it's an eye-opening experience for a lot of my clients when the reality sets in and we're like, wow, we had this much debt. We weren't aware that it was this much. But when you see it on paper and when they've gone through turning in their information and they've had to sit down and list all their creditors, that I think it does them some good, and they kind of get into the budgeting, the credit counseling classes that a debtor has to take prior to filing bankruptcy and after the bankruptcy's been filed. Do a good job of explaining the bankruptcy process, explaining credit and other financial issues, and just how it all works and things to look out for to be a educated consumer. And so hopefully maybe that aspect of the bankruptcy reform is actually helping people get some knowledge of how things work and how to avoid pitfalls that may may get them back into having to file bankruptcy again.